Hello, welcome back. We are kicking off a new 3 week series, and this series is all about truth, right? I'm watching the news, I'm looking at people's social medias, and it seems very important to talk about truth. So, over the next 3 weeks, we'll be talking about what is truth, how do we know what is true, and why do people believe things that are not true? So that's kind of like our trajectory, right? So, how do we know truth? Well, to start us off, we'll go way back to this dude named Plato, right? And Plato had this very simple definition of truth. Truth is to say something is when it actually is, right? And something is false if you say something is and it is not, right? Pretty simple. Truth is when you say something is and it actually is. But the problem, all these wacky postmodernists come in, and the problem is how do we know what is, right? We can say what is, but how do we know that it is what is? All right. And so let's do a little brainy experiment, right? You're sitting in your living room or your bedroom or wherever you're watching this. Put your hands on wherever you're sitting. How do you know that that is there? Really think about it. You know it is there because you are touching it. Maybe it has an aroma and you can smell it. It is holding up your weight. All these things. And the reason all of those things are tied to your senses, right? Which move along your nerves and then go up into your brain. So then the next question is your brain is telling you that thing is there. Can you trust your brain that it is telling the truth, right? Can you trust your brain that it is telling the truth? Because there are people who have mental conditions where they have auditory and visual hallucinations. And so it is difficult for those people to trust their brain. So how do we know we can trust our brain that what we say is there, right? So then you have to say, well, is there an objective reality? Do things exist beyond our own perception of them, right? And the way to think about this, we often talk about, so we have students who are colorblind, right? And so they see colors differently than people who are not colorblind. But at the same time, we might both call the same thing red, but we don't necessarily know that we see it the same way. We just call the same thing red. But is there a true red beyond what you see or what I see? Now, as Christians, we would say yes. And our reason for that is because God exists, right? So beyond our own perception of things, there is God. And God perceives everything, right? And sees it as it truly is. The only problem is if you're a philosopher, right? That's great for us. If we are Christians, if we are people of faith, that we believe that there is a God who exists, so therefore there is an objective reality beyond our own perception. But if you're a philosopher, that's still not enough because you are trusting and believing that there is a God without, again, perceiving it. And even if you could perceive it, Could you, again, trust that perception? So I'm going to say, I know this is a lot. I hope you're tracking, but this is, I joke a little bit, but this is big brain time just to start us out. We know things to be true because ultimately we trust. Either we trust our brain and our perception, either we trust that there is a God who is real, and then on even a more broad level, we trust other people when they tell us things, right? When you go, imagine what school would be like if every single thing your teacher told you, you had to go prove its existence. You would get nothing done. Because at a certain level, we trust. All right? We trust. And that's going to come back big time in the next 2 weeks. This video, I just want to keep a little bit shorter because there's a lot in it. If you need to watch it again, that's fine. I had to read through my notes 4 times to make sure I was going to get everything right. But quick recap. How do we know it's true? True is when we say something is and it actually is. But how do we know what is? Well, our brain and our senses tell us what is. But we have to trust our brains. And ultimately, we trust that there is a God outside of our own existence that ensures that there is a real, objective reality outside of the way that we perceive things. So ultimately, we know what is true because we trust. We trust God. We trust our brains, who, again, we trust that God made, right? And we can trust each other. To know truth, to know what actually is, we need trust. So that's the quick recap. I hope I didn't lose you. Next week, we'll be talking about what is true, right? What is true. And we'll be looking at verses in the Bible, and we'll be talking about things happening in the world. That's next week. Next week is what is true. This week is how do we know what's true? And then the last week, why do people believe things that aren't true? So that's it for me today. Think about it a little bit. How do you know what's true? How do you know what's true? And let me know if you can come up with an answer that ultimately doesn't lead back to you have to trust, right? I'd be interested to hear that. But I will talk to you soon. That's it for now.